There is a substance sitting in your bathroom right now. You put it in your mouth twice a day. You give it to your children without a second thought. And for most of your life, you've never questioned what it actually is or where it came from. But its history begins not in a laboratory dedicated to dental health, but in a small Colorado town where thousands of people were developing stained, mottled teeth, and nobody could explain why. That investigation would eventually uncover something that divided scientists, alarmed governments, and sparked a controversy that has never fully gone away. Today, we are exploring the hidden history of fluoride. The substance once feared as a poison that became one of the most widely used public health interventions in human history, right here on History of Simple Things. Fluoride is not a modern invention. It is a naturally occurring mineral compound found in soil, water, and rock formations across the planet. In trace amounts, it exists in nearly every freshwater source on Earth. For most of human history, its presence went unnoticed and unstudied. That changed in the early 1900s, when a young American dentist named Frederick Mackay arrived in Colorado Springs and encountered something he had never seen in his training. The local population had teeth marked by brown stains and unusual pitting. The condition was widespread, affecting children and adults alike. It was visually alarming. But Mackay noticed something equally striking. Despite the staining, these same people had remarkably low rates of tooth decay. That combination, severe discoloration alongside unusual cavity resistance, made no sense by the medical standards of the time. Mackay spent years collecting data, consulting colleagues, and investigating possible causes. Eventually, researchers identified the source. The local water supply contained naturally high concentrations of fluoride, far above what the body could process without visible effects. At those elevated levels, fluoride was damaging tooth enamel during development, causing a condition now known as dental fluorosis. The brown staining was a symptom of overexposure. The substance was behaving in measurable ways like a toxin. The discovery triggered immediate concern. Several communities moved to filter fluoride out of their water supplies entirely. Scientists debated whether the compound was simply too dangerous for human exposure. Government officials in multiple states called for investigations. The early narrative around fluoride was not one of promise. It was one of contamination and risk. But within that same research, a more complicated picture was emerging. Scientists began to notice that the relationship between fluoride and teeth was not straightforward. At very high concentrations, fluoride caused damage. But at significantly lower concentrations, something different appeared to happen. Communities with moderate natural fluoride levels in their water showed lower rates of cavities than communities with none at all. The damage was dose-dependent, and that distinction would change everything. By the early 1940s, researchers had developed enough evidence to propose a controlled experiment. If naturally occurring fluoride at low levels appeared to reduce tooth decay, what would happen if fluoride was deliberately added to a water supply at a carefully regulated concentration? In 1945, the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan, became the first city in the world to test that hypothesis. Fluoride was added to the municipal water supply at approximately 1 part per million. The results were monitored closely over the following years. Cavity rates among children in Grand Rapids dropped by more than 60%. The scientific community took notice almost immediately. Within 2 decades, water fluoridation had been adopted by hundreds of cities across the United States and beyond. Dental associations endorsed it. Public health agencies promoted it. And the toothpaste industry recognized an opportunity. If fluoride in drinking water was strengthening teeth systemically, fluoride applied directly to the surface of teeth twice daily could provide even more targeted protection. The first fluoride toothpastes appeared in the late 1950s and early 1960s. By the 1970s, they had become the dominant product on the market. Today, fluoride is present in the vast majority of commercial toothpastes sold worldwide. It works by bonding to the surface of tooth enamel and making it more resistant to the acids produced by bacteria. It also helps remineralize areas of enamel that have begun to weaken before a cavity can fully form. The mechanism is well understood, and the evidence for its effectiveness has been replicated across decades of research. Yet, from the very beginning, fluoride's integration into public life was not without opposition. Critics argued that adding any chemical to a public water supply without individual consent raised serious ethical questions. Others pointed to studies suggesting that fluoride at higher doses could affect bone density, disrupt thyroid function, and in some research, influence neurological development in children. Several European countries, including Germany, the Netherlands, and Sweden, chose to end water fluoridation programs entirely, arguing that fluoride toothpaste made systemic exposure through water unnecessary. The debate has never fully resolved. The mainstream scientific consensus, supported by the World Health Organization and major dental associations, holds that fluoride at regulated concentrations is safe and effective. But the history of how that consensus was built, starting with a substance that visibly damaged teeth in Colorado Springs, moving through decades of contested research, and arriving at a compound now present in nearly every bathroom on Earth, is more complicated than the simple reassurance on a toothpaste label suggests. The story of fluoride is ultimately a story about how context transforms meaning. The same compound that stained the teeth of thousands in the early 1900s became, at a fraction of the concentration, one of the most successful preventive health tools ever developed. It is a reminder that in science, as in history, the difference between harm and benefit is rarely about the substance itself. It is almost always about the dose, the environment, and the depth of understanding brought to bear on both. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.